Welcome to the second edition of the Melbourne Guitar Festival podcast. Firstly, I'd like to say a very special thanks to our concert supporters, Old School Audio, Dainton Beer, Delinquenti Wine, Cut Common Magazine, and the Luthier's Lounge. Today, on episode 2, we're joined with Andrew Blanche and Ariel as they prepare for their upcoming concert for us on March 9th. So we'll dive straight into the questions now, and we'll just go live. Welcome. We can see you.
Hello.
So thanks a lot for joining us today. We've got Ariel on the left and Andrew on the right. And you'll be doing a concert for us on March 9th at Parkville at 7 p.m. with further details at melbourneguitarfestival.com. We did a shout out to our subscribers and they've submitted a bunch of great questions for us today. So we'll just kick things off and jump straight into this first question from Josh. And he asks, I'd be interested to know, and interested in your insight too, playing in MGQ, Michael, is that given the classical guitar is traditionally a very solitary and unaccompanied instrument, do you feel it's important that all classical guitar students participate in chamber music early on as part of a well-balanced musical education?
I would say absolutely, yeah, definitely. Apart from the things it teaches you about just playing music, like, you know, you can't have bad rhythm really and play well with others. It gives you another insight into learning music, but it's just so important to learn how to listen to others and be able to lock in. It's a fundamental musical skill. So, yeah, I got to agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think there are a lot of very kind of competent guitar players in the kind of technical and soloistic sense, but often they're not the best chamber musicians. And you want to develop that skill just like every other aspect of your playing. And without it, I think your possibilities as a musician are far more narrow. So I think just being able to work with other musicians, to play in ensembles is incredibly important, opening up new opportunities. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm just going to pause for one moment because I'm getting a little bit of an echo. I think we have the audio on in the background. So I'll just turn that off and we'll go back to the live video. And I definitely agree with you as well. And I know guitarists, unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of playing in orchestras and things like that. So, yeah, I think it's great that what you're doing and what a lot of other guitarists are doing is just expanding from the solo instrument and trying to get as much chamber performance as possible. And the video seems to be a little bit stuck at the moment, but hopefully it will come good. We'll move on to the next question from Tom, and this one is one special question to Andrew, if I may. Can you share some of your guitar teaching discoveries from your PhD thesis/research?
Well. Let me think about this. Because I'm not project isn't quite at that stage where I can just neatly give you some sort of findings, so to speak. So these are just like preliminary observations, but a couple of things that might interest viewers because I've heard people remark on the technical ability of a lot. So, I mean, for people who don't know, PhD I've been pursuing for the last couple of years on classical guitar pedagogy. I've focused on case studies on Timothy Kane, the guitar teacher who taught at Canberra for a long time and still does some private teaching there, and Judikao Pewa, who's a sort of famous teacher, now teaching in San Francisco and taught in Paris for quite a long time, and he's quite well known for teaching a lot of competition winners and that sort of thing. And a lot of people particularly remark about the technical ability of a lot of Judikao's students. But also I've heard, believe it or not, people also comment on the technical ability of ANU guitar students as being quite impressive. And I think probably the thing that would surprise people is that in my observation of, although I haven't done case studies on any teachers other than Tim and Judah Kyle, it's my observation that they're so much more, if I could say, music focused than technically focused, which I think would surprise people considering the kinds of results that tend to happen. So it's something about the way I see what they do. And remember, this is just like my preliminary sort of thoughts about it. They're not developing a systematic thing. Is that they're really focusing on developing the musician in you, and kind of the ability to clarify your mental thoughts about how you're going to interpret and perform a piece, and then the way that kind of connects to your instrument in an integrated and fluid way, so that you can just play. And then, yeah, I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's not like you do 2 hours of exercises a day and then you are going to play technically brilliant. It doesn't work that way.
Unfortunately, because that would still be hard work, but at least we'd have a clear route to get there. We've got another question from Raul, and he asks, where do you think you can find more new source material for guitar duo, in the transcriptions of classical composers or in solo guitar compositions adapted to a guitar duo?
I'll probably say just in the works of all the classical composers. I think there's obviously an enormous amount of great music out there. The trick is just knowing what will work on two guitars, so having an ear for that. But I think Andreas Segovia once said in this little article he wrote for Guitar Review that if a piece can gain in expression and color on the guitar, it's not only kind of possible that a transcription should be made, but it's mandatory. So he really believes that we should be transcribing the pieces that would work on our instruments, which I think is quite cool. I think adapting a solo guitar piece to two guitars could be a bit musically unsatisfying. You won't necessarily have a proper bass line or a very detailed melodic line, and then you've got all that spread across two guitars, so it might be a bit boring. But it might be a bit better if you were able to find a piece that's been reworked by the composer for two guitars. So say Nigel Westlake's Moss Trooper Peak, or I don't know, there's probably others out there. I can't think off the top of my head. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a similar way, I thought MGQ's reworking of the William Morton 5-bagatelles was a really, really interesting concept of taking a solo piece and kind of expanding it out. And they probably, I don't know, probably used that concerto as a bit of inspiration. Is it a concerto?
Or a concerto or something?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting concept.
Yeah,
definitely. Raul also asks, do you think that one of the major advantages of playing music in guitar duo is the possibility of having a one-to-one musical confrontation and create a dialogue between both guitars beyond the typical arrangement of solo with mere accompaniment? Which of the works you play allow for this stance?
The Tango Suite does it a lot.
Yeah.
So it's Tango Suite. It's sort of a piece in 3 movements by Astor Piazzolla, and that does a lot of part swapping, where one person has a bit of an accompaniment and the other person has the solo, and that's really terrific fun.
And often you'll find that the rhythmic patterns of the accents and the groupings of the meter in both parts are different at the same time. It kind of creates its own little conflict, and they have, I guess, different musical intentions or something.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's something I would love for us to strive for, is to find as much conflict between us as possible, in a way, because that's where all the interest in music comes from. Dissonance is conflict. If a whole piece was just consonants and metrically expected accents and that kind of thing, it would be totally boring. It's all the other stuff that makes music interesting. So I think the more we could find the way our parts are posed, probably the more interesting our performance would be.
Yeah.
Excellent. And we have one more question from Raoul. He asks, traditional compositions written for guitar duo as works from Giuliani and Saw are not often played. Do you think is necessary to create a new repertoire based on the advanced technical playing of today's guitarists?
Ooh, loaded question.
Yeah, it is.
Right. I'll probably say that there already is like a so-called advanced repertoire with the modern technique in mind. There's like the Piazzolla, there's Rodrigo Tonadilla, there's a piece by Bogdanovich into sonata of some sort. Pierre Petit wrote a couple of pieces, very virtuosic. Brouwer's written stuff, Sergio Assar's written stuff. Houghton has 3 guitar duets. Yeah, so there's a fair bit out there that's already drawing on, I guess, a more advanced technique or something.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have even more music. So yeah.
If I can jump in there as well, I'd like to. I find that an interesting thing that frequently comes up as well, where people describe technique as having advanced compared to the past, and I just think that's an interesting concept to talk about as well in and of itself. Geez, I mean, a lot of the Giulio Rigondi repertoire from the 19th century, that's like unplayable to most. I mean, you know, a lot of professional guitarists do not want to get up and play a Rigondi piece in concert because it is so difficult.
Yeah.
And when they do, they tend to play maybe the intro and caprice or some other stuff. What else is there? Yeah, there was like, I think there was tremendous virtuosity in the 19th century and the 18th century and all that. We just don't have recordings to prove it. We've got recordings from the early 20th century, I guess. And I'm not too experienced in listening to that stuff, but I don't know. I would question the assumption that our technique is vastly superior to what it used to be. It might be different, and there might be different purposes in mind.
Excellent. The next question is from John. I would be interested to know how they go about choosing a repertoire for a concert. Do they have a process?
It's hard to say really. I think a lot of the pieces just come because we have kind of similar interests, and over time they kind of develop themselves into a program that's kind of that kind of adds up to a nice whole concert. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think we've both been. I don't know. I think we've both wanted to have the right reasons for including whatever pieces we happen to be including, and I think it's mostly just coming down to what we think, what we enjoy playing, and what's going to be also enjoyable for the audience. In a sense, always coming back to that, and not trying to be too clever with like that we're doing this original piece that someone doesn't play or that kind of thing. We're just thinking at a fundamental level, if we went to a concert, what would we like to hear? What kind of balance between fast and slow and virtuosic, and you know, what do we want to hear as concert goers, and what do we enjoy playing, and then just putting those two things together.
This might be a good opportunity for me to ask you to perhaps describe a little bit about the program that you're going to be performing for us on March 9th and how you chose that repertoire for this particular concert.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, we had variety in mind for our program, and we were trying to find pieces from all around the world, so different musical cultures, and I think there's so much contrast from each piece that we go through in the concert, or each bracket if you like, in terms of style, and I think that's going to create for a more interesting, engaging concert as a whole.
Also, somehow it's worked out, and I saw someone had asked a question related to this later, but somehow it's worked out that our program has sort of paid tribute to a lot of the great guitar duos around the world. So we have borrowed from arrangements and pieces made famous by guitar duos such as the Abro brothers, the Assad brothers, John Williams and Timothy Kane, their album. We were also for a time inspired by Cressy Goya, and yeah, we've drawn on quite a lot of sort of guitar duos in the past and their work, and it's quite interesting to see how they've conceived of arranging and performing for two guitars.
Great. And are there any pieces in particular you'd like to tell our audience what you'll be playing at the concert, or do you want to keep it more of a surprise for them?
It doesn't need to be a surprise. No, it's going to be a 60-minute concert straight through. So it's not our sort of full program, and we haven't actually discussed exactly what we're going to do, but I've got a feeling it's going to include Rameau, it's going to include Piazzolla, and I'm not sure what else. Probably some Debussy. House, yeah. That's probably the program right there.
Yeah. Excellent. And our next question is from Rob, and he asks, being in a string quartet was once described as marriage without sex. Is the same true of being in a guitar duo, and how much do personality factors make a difference to the music making?
It's true, yeah. Want to answer the second bit?
What was the second bit?
Personality. How did personality factors contribute to
the music making?
Pretty essential. That's a really interesting thing. As like I've developed as a musician, when I get to know people, and you just start to see how their personality really shines through in the way they play. So I suppose we would probably only really be able to work if we, in some way, actually appreciated the other person's personality. And,
Excellent. The next question we have from Jim, and he asks, given each person's strengths, I think we've covered this already, strengths, weaknesses, likes and dislikes, how do you choose repertoire? So I think we've covered that with the other questions. The next one from Jim is, how do you choose what parts each person plays?
Sometimes one of us has a burning desire to play a particular part because it's got some melody that, one of us just really wants to play, and then we just do it that way.
It's got like fast iron scales.
It sounds like us with the Melbourne Guitar Quartet. If there's any difficult bits, we just give that to Dan McKay and say good luck.
We fought for a little while over who was going to take what part in Movement 3 of the Piazzolla. And I got to say, that was like, neither of us wanted to take the hard part.
The next question from Jim is, how do you deal with creative and interpretive differences? So say if you're in a rehearsal and one wants to play it one way, the other wants to play another way, what do you do? What process do you do in deciding what actually happens at the end of the day?
Well, I'm happy to jump in with an immediate thought, which is, and this has been new for me as well, because I haven't, I probably haven't worked with another musician as closely as with Ariel, to say, sort of as intensely. I'm just starting to realize that sometimes it just takes time, and you just have to let an idea settle or mature and see, and some things just get better over time and they don't need discussing, or like you might try one thing and you just got to try it for a while, and after a while you sort of realize whether it's going to work or not. I don't know. That's my immediate thought.
I think also like the best thing you can do if you have a kind of creative difference is just explain why you want to play something a particular way, like what basis do you have for that, and then if either of us can explain that kind of successfully, then hopefully we can broaden each other's sort of interpretive outlook a little bit, and then kind of come to an agreement on how we interpret some kind of passage or section of a piece. Yeah.
Great. The next question is, what makes a great guitar duo? Also from Jim.
Probably in some ways just the same thing as makes a great soloist or a great quartet or orchestra or whatever.
I think it's all those things, yeah. Just plus, I guess, the ability to synchronize well and to come to a kind of coherent or something. Yeah.
I guess one other point I could interject with this is perhaps how does playing in a guitar duo or making a guitar duo really in sync, how does that differ to like a string quartet in terms of the attack on the guitar? Because it's a very immediate, instant stroke of the note and immediate sound response. Does that play a factor in?
Yeah.
I think you have to be pretty precise in all ways with plucked instruments in general. So, yeah. And that's it means lots of like kind of micro cues throughout the performance, and they're kind of guessing where the other player is, anything like that. Listening.
It can be quite remarkable though when you are just listening to each other. The fact that the loudest point is the beginning of the note. So, if you're just the tiniest split second difference, you'll notice. Whereas maybe if you have an instrument, like a wind instrument or a bowed instrument, where the sound blooms a little bit more, you could kind of feel your way in a bit more. With the guitar, it's so exact. But what the amazing thing is, actually, if you're really listening and really in tune with each other, often you can just get it bang on so much of the time. And I find that quite amazing, actually, if you think about the kind of precision that's involved. But a lot of it can just be fixed by listening.
The next two questions are also from Jim. He had quite a few for you. This one is, how do you know you inspired your audience, and does it matter?
Yeah, that definitely matters.
I guess they buy lots of CDs at the end.
Well, they tell you. They tell you. Sometimes they make noises from the audience.
Yeah.
Oh. Or,
You can usually just kind of feel it, like if they're engaged or not, and then they're giving you energy back when you're playing, and you somehow play better as well when you're inspired. Yeah. What's the second part of the question again?
Does it matter? So I think.
What does it?
I mean, I guess does it affect you? Say if you do a performance and perhaps you don't, if it's in a large hall and perhaps you don't have that intimate response from an audience, does that affect things?
It can, yeah. If you're not feeling a warmness on the audience, you can tense up a bit naturally, I think. But I was going to think, with that question as well, if they're not inspired, they're probably not enjoying it, and if they're not enjoying it, it's not good for us, and it's not good for music, because people can be turned off concerts, I think, easily. So you want to leave a good impression just for the sake of music.
Great. Another question from Jim is, how do you keep each other motivated?
I don't think we try or have to try. Yeah, we're both just individually motivated to begin with.
Yeah, so I think maybe, I don't know if it's related, but looking how far you've come, as a duet. Even just looking back to our concerts, half a year ago, and how we're playing now, I think that's inspiring. And then thinking ahead and thinking about the potential that we might have or something, it can keep you motivated and working harder.
I get a bit of a rush out of a good concert, or just those moments in a concert where you're really into it and you just do some phrase just absolutely how you want and it sits in the room perfectly and everything. I get a kick out of that stuff, and then when I'm noticing there's more and more of those moments happening, that's pretty good.
The next question is from Susan. It's in two parts. I think we've pretty much answered the first part previously in what are the challenges and advantages of playing in a duo. Her second part was, in the concert arena, are solo guitar performances more common than duet performances?
Are they?
Yes.
Yeah, they would be.
Definitely, by far.
Yeah, I think if you looked at the average guitar festival, you'd get 10 soloists and maybe one duet or something. Yeah.
And Matt asks, touring is often fun, rewarding and exciting. However, can sometimes be difficult. What is the hardest thing for you on tour?
I don't feel for me, I don't feel like there's an individual thing. But maybe it's just the accumulation of a lot of little things, a lot of little discomforts, a lot of perhaps a poor diet, or if you've got a lot of, if you are like away on tour, having to do a lot of traveling, the exhaustion that can come with that.
I find it a little bit hard as well to get in all the practice that you want to do to maintain your playing and all that sort of stuff, because a lot of the time it's spending driving and then socialising with hosts and concert presenters and emailing ahead so that everything's organised the next place. Sometimes you don't really even get a chance to warm up before a concert, which can be a bit of a challenge. But we came up with a bit of a solution. We just practice a little bit in the car while the other person's driving.
And you just recently did a tour of New Zealand, and you've been playing a lot of concerts throughout Australia. What was the highlight of your New Zealand tour?
There were so many, always. Maybe a few of my favourites were, we did a concert in a museum outside Christchurch, and just the audience was so keen, and they just absolutely adored the concert, and it was a beautiful space. Like, we really enjoyed playing there as well, and that was just a really great experience. And we actually had a really pleasant time, like staying around, chatting, having a glass of wine with the people that were there afterwards, and yeah, that was really fun. And then so many of our hosts over there were just really generous and great fun, and showed us things and introduced us to things, and we have a lot of stories now from New Zealand which are quite funny, and
Any of those stories in particular that stand out that you want to share with us? Or maybe after a couple of drinks after the concert.
Is there anything we could with this?
Well, we tried warm goat's milk straight from the
udder.
Well, not directly from the udder, but transferred into a portable vessel, and yes, that was. And just as we were taking it in our mouth, the host informed us that apparently it's the closest thing to human breast milk, which I have to say did not make it any more appealing.
All right, excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Andrew. We're nearly at the end of the questions, so the next two are just about types of guitars. I'll say both of them, and then I'll let you answer. So the first one from Josh is, what are your opinions, this is a very popular question, on lattice versus traditional built guitars? And then we have a question from John asking, I would be interested in their comments on the importance or otherwise of matching instruments or providing contrasting instruments in their duo playing.
A little hard to answer the whole lattice versus traditional thing, because there are good examples of lattice guitars and there are also some really bad ones, and I think the same goes for traditional guitars. But we both play Greg Small guitars, so we obviously like a lattice-braced instrument for the properties that it has, like enhanced resonance and volume and color and all those sorts of things. So yeah, I guess we have guitars that are fairly similar already. They're 4 years apart. Mine's 2010 and his 2014. And they do sound a little bit different. And then on top of that, we play sort of differently as well. Like, we have different tone colors naturally, and our sound is generally quite different, which kind of is a good thing, I think. Like, we have our own kind of contrast, but within the Greg Smallman aesthetic, if you like. Which, I think is a good thing.
I think particularly with a Smallman instrument, I haven't really tried it, but if you did a lot of guitar playing with someone who was playing a vastly different traditional instrument, I'm actually not sure how well that would line up, because they are quite different, and you do sort of approach things musically, and you have different, kind of priorities and things you're trying to do. For one thing, like the Smallman has such a kind of, on the note, every note is like a slow bloom kind of thing, and then other guitars, the note is very instantaneous. And I wonder what that would be like trying to put those two sounds together. Could work really well. I don't know.
Interesting. And actually, our last question was one that you referred to earlier. Would previously answered this. It was about how you were influenced and inspired by the work of other guitar duos. You were mentioning Presti Lagoya and that earlier. So I'd just like to finally ask if there's any other things you want to share with our audience and before you come down for our concert.
Well, on that guitar duo note, one other thing, that's been really interesting and exciting about studying the work of past guitar duos is like just listening and thinking about the various musical decisions and the way they made tone colors and made it blend with each other, and also the fingerings they would use, and because you might have one passage that could be fingered any number of different ways, right hand, left hand, how many slurs do you introduce them, where do you introduce them, all that sort of thing. And just by like kind of, I think of both our approaches, but certainly speaking for myself, when I haven't just taken the score and like let my own, absolutely only my own fingerings, only my own musical conception. I've sort of gone back and sort of looked at, well, what did they do in that passage? And then I try it for myself and try to work out why did they finger it like that? Does that work for me? And I might try it for a little while. I might change this or that. And it's just been a great learning experience to think about why they play things the way they do and how they do it. And then out of that, make my own decisions.
Excellent. Yeah, well, do you want to add anything there, Ariel, as well?
No, I agree. Yeah, I think you have to be still learning from these great duos of the past and the present ones as well. There's a lot of guitar duos doing some cool new things, like the solo duo, guitar duo, Kapinski duo, doing fantastic new arrangements, different pieces like Beethoven sonatas and things like that, and just realizing, that can work on two guitars and not sound kind of trivial or something. It's inspiring.
Great. Well, thanks very much for joining us today, this afternoon, and I know I'm really looking forward to hearing your concert, and it'll be a really great event, I'm sure. We even have some special new stage lighting we're going to unveil at this concert, so that's really exciting. It'll be a really nice mood in the auditorium. And of course, like all our concerts series events, it's a pay what you like ticket model, and that includes the complimentary catering, beer, wine and cheese as well at the end of the concert, thanks to Dayton Beer and Delaquente Wine. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll share the replay with our subscribers as well. And we'll see you on March the 9th.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks very much. See you then.